absolutely fantastic and run a good show. And so in my introduction, yes, I have lived internationally. I lived in Taiwan when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and that's where I really got the feeling where I don't understand, I feel different. My dad was in international agriculture, and when we'd go into the small town that we lived close by, people would reach out to touch our hair and try to talk to us. And I learned a lot could be done with body language and connecting with people, and smile is a global language. So it's made me passionate about communicating across languages and cultures. So it's my honor to be here today to share. I'd like to know a little bit about you. Everybody open your chat and say what town you're in and what you're hoping to get out of today. That would be really helpful for us. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and start. There we go. First, I want to define some terminology so we make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. And then I'm going to be covering inbound, and Andrew's going to be covering outbound. And if we look a little bit more as to what they are, I just hit something and it seemed to shrink the slide, so I don't know what I hit. This is my first time on this platform, but we're making it work. Okay, so inbound is all the stuff where you hear about SEO, social media, paid search. Communities have become a real big thing these days in ABM. So, and then outbound is virtual conferences, their sales, their follow-up with people and trying to get the close on the sale. And that's where Andrew's going to talk because he's had a lot of success in that area. And inbound, website SEO, that's everything that you need to do to build your website so people are coming into it and they're connecting with you, they're feeling like you're solving their problem, and the website, the search engines are finding you. Social media is all the other stuff that you're doing off your website that's bringing people into your website. And then you've got paid search, communities, assets, and ABM, and I'm going to get into each of these a little bit more. Okay, so I see social media as the cocktail party. So remember before we could go live and we didn't have to wear our masks, you would go out to conferences and you'd sit around tables, or there'd be social events. You'd be talking to people and you never knew who you were going to run into. It was kind of a random thing, and people could possibly become clients, but you're also networking with people that could refer people in. So this is social media. This is how I see that. You've got to spend some time on that, just meeting whoever you're going to. And then if they have an interest in becoming a partner, a referral source, or a client, then that's when you'd pull them into the dinner table or the lunch table and you have a more in-depth conversation. So your social media is for making that wide introduction, and then your website is for answering more specific questions. Paid search is when you're actually doing your billboards. Okay, so I'm not going to get into this too much because it's an area we don't get into. We translate for it, but it's not my area of specialty. We do a lot with the cocktail party and the dinner table, and I think there's a ton that you could do. I'm not seeing anything on chat. Have you guys found the chat button? It's the little conversation thing. So I want to see some names and what you're hoping to get out of this. Now, communities are a new hot thing right now. And this is where you're trying to pull people together for an affinity. So there's a couple that I know of that are focused on salespeople and marketing people. I'm involved in one called Softland Partners, and you can Google that, search for it, or just put it in your browser, softlandpartners.com. And that's a place for people who do international business, and you can go in there and make connections from all over the world. They have meetups that are in 14 cities right now, and they've been expanding phenomenally. There's another one that I run is a speed networking one. It's global speed networking. And if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll add you to the invitation list. And that's for people who do global business or are interested in getting more connections with people that do global business. So rather than being out on Facebook with everybody and not really narrowing down, communities have really started over the last couple of years to pull people together with shared interests. So these are the Peak community is one that is for marketing people, and Sales Rebellion is one for salespeople. So these are the examples that I gave in those areas. Okay, the next thing to think about for your website is what assets are you going to need? So if you put a website up and you just keep it that way, you start losing importance on Google or any of the search engines. And you don't want to do that because then you're not going to get found and you're not going to get international exposure, David. So what you want to do is continually create new stuff that's going out there. And we've picked up a pattern for doing this. And what this is I host the Global Marketing Podcast, and then I also do videos for social media. We post every day on LinkedIn. And then that information can be turned into a blog. And then a blog, you can take like 3 of those and put them together for a white paper. And then you take, 3 or 4 of your white papers and put them together for an ebook. And then once you start getting into the white papers and the ebooks, you can gate that content. So when somebody is trying to figure out how to do something, they can come to your website and then you can gather their information and get them into your cycle. So this is how you can pull people in. Now, if you're doing it all in English, that could be a problem. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I want to define another term that's happening in the sales and marketing arena, and this is account-based marketing. And that was that traditionally you had your marketing department doing one thing, your sales department doing another, and you were hoping that they were aligning on something. Account-based marketing is where marketing and sales sits down. They identify the target clients that they want to bring in, and then they come up with all the assets that they're going to need to talk to those clients, and they shorten down the sales cycle. So it really helps with streamlining. Okay, so I like to think of global inbound as content is your king. Bill Gates said this years ago when the whole internet was starting to boom. He said content is king. He said that's what's going to pull people in. Now marketers have adapted it and said, well, consistency is the queen, because if you just do one really good website and you don't do anything else, it's not consistently alerting the search engines that you have new material. Now, my premise is that translation is the princess. You've really got to make it attractive to the markets that you're trying to pull in for them to actually come and consume your content. So how do you do that? Well, here's the flywheel that we consider with multilingual communications. If you look in the middle, that's what your goal is, multilingual communications, that's your princess. And it's good to have a strategy. You want to start with that, is know if you want to get international exposure, you start thinking about, well, what countries or languages would make sense to do? So that's your corporate strategy. And then your marketing strategy is going to support that. And your multilingual strategy is then going to drive what kind of content and outreach that you're doing, or inbound content creation, so you can pull that in. Then you want to look at technology. Okay, point number 1 over on the other side, do not use Google Translate. I cannot tell you what a problem it causes if you take the Google Translate plugin and put it on your website and think that you're adapting your information for the market. You want to make sure and do high quality translation. In addition, it can be seen as duplicate content, which Google will ding you for and not help you show up in search engines. So rather than using Google Translate, you're better off doing a landing page, and maybe not your whole website if you're worried about budget, and really customizing that to what your audience wants to hear. Process. This is, so you think about strategy, technologies. There are some APIs, there's connectors, there's translation memories. There's all sorts of technologies that can help you in what you're doing, but do not use Google Translate. Then you think about process. We had a client call us up and they said, you know, we want to translate emails because we're providing services and we're getting inquiries from China, but they have questions for us and we don't know how to respond to them or what they're saying. And so in talking through his process, I said, you know, are you getting the same questions all the time? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, why not do a landing page answering those questions? So it's a landing page, a little bit about the company, what the services are, and then answering all the questions that the client comes in. It was going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than translating emails all the time that are going to be pretty much the same information. And he was like, ah, that's such a good idea. Rather than just doing it for Chinese, he also did in about 3 or 4 other languages to start attracting those clients, the international clients that could use his software. And then you want to think about quality. If you're trying to bring new clients in, if it's something that can affect the liability of your company, you want to make sure to get high quality. If you get a random email, go ahead and take that and pop it into Google Translate to see if it even has anything to do with your business. You'll get the gist of it. And if it's important, then you know how to deal with it. Then okay, so now you've thought about your strategy, technology, process, and quality. So that's your translation management plan. Then you want to think about your audiences and your content. And those are the outer rings, and they'll all flow from your translation management plan. And remember, if you invest in long-term quality, you can reuse that content all the time, and marketing is a lot about doing that. Now, culturally adapt it for your audience. In cultural appropriation, we've had clients call up and say, you know, we have this translated, but we keep getting feedback that it's really a crappy translation. And we always start with, where are you going to use this? And this client happened to say, well, this is a translation that's going to be used in Canada. When we had our Canadian translator review it, she said, oh, this was done by a Haitian Creole French speaker. No wonder they think it's a poor translation. It's just culturally not appropriate. The words and the style of speaking is very different. So always understand who your audience is, and that can drive who's going to do the translation. And then really good translators are going to be watching out for cultural appropriation. And so then and they know, they're trained to come back and tell you if there's something that's incorrect. Now, if you just go find a bilingual person, maybe that's living in the United States, they may not know that. So we take a lot of time on appointing the appropriate translator to a client's project, so they make sure to get that ongoing feedback. And I have a ton of stories about that. Okay, so the next 5 steps of what I would recommend for you to do to start thinking about your outbound is, first, you think about your dinner table. You don't think about the cocktail party first, you think about your dinner table. You want to set up your website so it's answering the questions. Now, there's a really great book by Marcus Sheridan called They Ask, You Answer. And it talks about the 5 questions that are asked over and over again. If you get this book or you go search it, you can contact me. I can summarize what the 5 questions are. Those are the questions that you want to be answering on your website. Then pick a cocktail party platform. So I picked LinkedIn. That's a business-to-business platform. We do a post every day. We do some video. We do some short posts. We do a podcast release. And we're consistent on it. And there's all different ways that you can translate your LinkedIn profile too. So if you want to get international attention and want to use that platform, you can do that. And you got to think about who your buyers are as to whether you use LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All of them are appropriate. We just happen to pick LinkedIn this year. Next year, we'll pick Facebook. And we've been using them all a while. We're just going deeper and deeper. And then decide how to manage your king, queen, and your princess. You have to create the content. You have to be consistent. And you have to do your translation. So you do your translation plan, and then you'll have a process for all that happens. And then if you have target accounts, you could do ABM, and that will help. And number 5 is hidden Train your salespeople on technology. Okay, it's hidden behind the little bar, and I can't move the bar. So if you have salespeople, you're going to train them to use the inbound. You're trying to get leads to come in, so your salespeople come in as closers rather than doing all that upfront work with a high cost resource to bring new clients in. So you're not alone. If you have not heard about STEP grants yet, they are absolutely fantastic. If you want to do international expansion, STEP grants used to pay for a lot of the travel and trade shows and international outreach that way. They've now adapted it so you can get this attention on your website and then provide translation so you can start bringing in international sales. We've developed some export pricing packages so you don't have to wonder how much it's going to cost. You can look at, we've got 3 different packages that can apply to that. We also provide a learning center. So if you have questions, you can go in and search for anything. If you can't find it there, let me know and we'll create something. I host the Global Marketing Podcast. You can find it on all the places that you listen, talking about to people about their experience with international marketing. And I've heard some fabulous suggestions. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you mention this presentation, we'll send you our ultimate guide to website translation that people have found very helpful. Okay, so now I am going to pass it off to Andrew, who's going to focus more on Outbound and the success that he's had from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. As always, I end up making lots of notes when you're talking, so I've got lots of things I've got to follow up with you on. Hello, everyone. So a little bit of background. Prior to this year, I'd done a significant amount of international travel to trade shows all around the globe, and COVID obviously changed that game for me. So what we've done is adapted a virtual trade show mode that we're using. The 2 recent ones that Rachel brought up were a virtual show in India and a virtual show in London that was actually serving the sub-Saharan Africa market. We've done a number of others as well, and we're booked for another 5 or 6 for the next 6 to 8 months. So I just thought I'd share with you some ideas and things that I've learned on the virtual trade show pieces here. So a couple of the first question folks typically ask is it worth it? And I think of 4 key points to keep in mind when you're looking at whether you want to engage in an international virtual trade show or any virtual trade show for that matter. First of all, make sure you have clear intent. What is your purpose? It works if you are looking just to understand more about a given market or a market segment or a region of the world or country. So as long as you go at whatever you're doing with a clear purpose of what you're trying to do, that's going to be very helpful. Time, the value of time. Virtual trade shows are, you aren't traveling. You are only in the trade show when you're scheduled at the trade show. So it actually is a very efficient use of your time. Cost, the trade show, the exhibitors' cost, the organizers' cost aren't that much lower. Trade shows are still expensive, virtual versus live, but you are saving money on the carrying of your booth, which is what this panel is behind me, and all of your trade show materials, and the cost of particularly going into foreign countries of the duties that you might pay on your goods going in. The 4th piece, which was interesting, I learned this summer, is JP Morgan decided to bring their stock floor traders back onto the trading floor early because they realized that they were able to functionally do their jobs, but they were missing out on incidental information gathering, which is simply, as Wendy had mentioned earlier, touching, being in the room and hearing conversations or having a conversation with someone who you may not have a direct business relationship with. And they were realizing their traders were missing out on a significant amount of incidental information gathering. A virtual trade show, believe it or not, is a great place for that. It actually still happens. So show prep. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're getting ready for a trade show, a virtual trade show, is your digital booth, When you work with an organizer, they're going to actually set you up with your own room, and they will give you all the information you need. They're going to ask you for your logo and whatever images you want to put up, videos you want to put in, etc. Literature, just like having your hard literature in a regular trade show, you will have all your PDFs available for your clients or people that visit the booth to take or to bring with them. Social media, again, as Wendy said, social media is the cocktail party. Make sure with the organizer, they will typically give you a banner ad that you can put into your social media on your web page, anywhere you want to put it. Make sure that folks know that you're actually participating in the trade show. Utilize all your event marketing options. They're going to give you all sorts of information. Again, spend time with the organizer and understand what's available to you. I think technically a virtual trade show can be more expansive than a live trade show because you actually can participate in presentations either by content experts or by your competitors. So you can actually be in the audience and again, picking up that incidental information. And likewise, you can actually be a presenter. It's much easier for you to be a presenter in a virtual show than it is in a live show. And of course, you're going to have access to the attendees and exhibitors list. Use that. You work with that with social media. I'll talk a little bit more later on that. But make sure you take advantage of that attendees and exhibitors list. Get to know who your competitors are. Great market analysis, research, competitive research. And also, really important, before the show, most organizers will provide an opportunity to spend time in the platform, learning how to use it and how to move around within the platform without trouble. So take that time and do it. It's every trade show organizer has something slightly different, but the general idea is the same. Setting the stage. So with technology, make sure that you have the right equipment for your virtual show. What I've done here actually is this white panel behind me is a trade show booth panel. I had a special one made just for doing virtual presentations, and I keep it up in my office, and I can turn it and position it and set it up with my camera. Green screens and backdrops. Again, the only thing I'd recommend with that is a picture of the beach in Hawaii doesn't really apply. Make sure it's appropriate to what you're trying to present within your organization. Keep it simple, keep it clean, and work with it. Take time before events and make sure the technology is working for you. Also, I'm a big fan of if you can use the video or the camera and audio from your laptop or your computer for about $100 or less. You can get a nice digital high definition camera with stereo speaker microphone, which I use, gives a much better quality image, and you can take it with you wherever you go. You can move it around, do different positions and angles on how you show your presentation. Lighting. When you do a virtual trade show, it's about noontime now, so the sun's directly overhead, so you would have pretty much good ambient light near a window. We have a whole wall of windows in my office, but at 9 o'clock in the morning, the light streams in, so I get different lighting issues going on. You want to make sure practice with your trade show booth and look at your camera activity and see where your lighting is. Make sure it works. Make sure you have good quality ambient lighting around you. Clutter, you cannot see my desk, and there's a reason for that. Be mindful of keeping a simple, clear backdrop to focus on what you're trying to present. It just makes it easier for your audience to see what's going on. Also, with virtual trade shows, go at them with an open mind. Everybody's in this together. We're all learning a new mode. I just read recently that Harvard's graduate schools are going to continue online for the spring of 2021. And my takeaway from that is those industry leaders that are going to be going out into the workforce in the next year, this is how they've learned. This is how they've built their relationships and their networks. And they're going to expect it going forward. So live in-person events are going to come back and occur as well, but remain open to the idea that this is a way we're going to do business significantly going forward. Foreign shows, a couple of things I've learned. The India show was 9 hours ahead. The London show was 5 hours ahead. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind with that. First of all, take an interest in the location. I personally, whenever I travel, like to go to a World Heritage site, but spend some time and get to know that area of the world. Pick up some keywords and phrases. It's okay if you're not fluent in the language, but if you are make an effort to say please and thank you in the local language when you're interacting with people, that goes a long way. Dress code, Asian subcontinent is very hot, so three-piece suits aren't really necessary. So to help blend in with the group that you're working with on that international trade show, look at how the dress code is in the area. And it's okay to dress however you would normally, but you can also dress a little more casually. For example, short sleeve shirts are very common in India. Cultural norms, I think Wendy touched on this, particularly with the translation piece. Spend some time to get to understand what's going on culturally within a country so you can be sensitive. And Wendy can certainly speak to a lot of examples like this where you think you're saying the right thing and you're telling someone to go get lost. So if you can spend a little time and understand what that country is about, the International Trade Office or the OIC and the US Commercial Service can give you lots of information about that. Look at current events. So we're in the weather industry and the environmental sensor industry, and when I was getting ready to do a presentation in India, there was a major monsoon that came through and flooded Mumbai. So I was able to actually grab a front page photo from the local newspaper in Mumbai and embed it into my presentation, showing a worker standing almost waist deep in water in the street directing people where to go. That grabs people, right? You show a sensitivity to their area, their environment, their concerns. So if you can pull that in, use it. Look at the history of an area, look at the history of a country. If you can touch on and understand some of the background, again, it goes to that cultural piece. It helps to increase your access to folks locally. They do want to talk about it. So if you don't have time, ask questions about it. Tell me a little bit about what you do in that country, or what is going on in your country that is relevant to me. Food, entertainment, games, and sports. If you like cricket and you're at a trade show in India, there's a conversation starter when you're in the breakout rooms. So any sports, any games that are common in the country, maybe just become familiar with them. You don't have to learn how to use them, but you can at least tune in and say, oh, can you tell me about a certain game that you play? Entertainment, what's popular, what are popular movies and things like that. The food, if I'm traveling to a foreign country virtually, I'll go to a local restaurant and eat the food. So I can talk about things like, oh, I had a really good naan at lunch yesterday or something like that. So again, these are ways just to bring you into the culture and the space that is in where a foreign trade show will be at. Okay, showtime. So what you want to make sure, and a lot of us are working from home, is to make sure that you have a dedicated space. I'm fortunate to have my office. I'm able to set up my background, whatever works, but try to make sure that pets and other family members aren't coming through the space while you're in a presentation or in a trade show. Make sure if it's a different time zone, you move into that time zone. So in India, the trade show started, I was getting up at 2:30 in the morning, doing my morning routine, having breakfast and the whole business. And then at 3 o'clock, I went live. I was not just rolling over and trying to turn the camera on and suddenly be active. I go ahead and move yourself into the appropriate time zone for that event. Now that said, in the foreign events we do, they typically are 24 hours. So the event itself may be live for 4 to 6 hours in the specific time zone where it's hosted, but people are signing in from all around the globe. It's really quite fascinating. So in any conference, you may have someone from Japan to India, to the Middle East, to the Eastern US, to the Western US, all on a conversation together. It's really pretty fascinating. You can't get that from a live show. Make sure that you are out of office, your email's turned off, your phone ringer is turned off, and let folks know when you're going to be at the show. It just makes it easier for everybody. And then participate. When you are not in your particular booth or you're doing a presentation, you have the advantage of very easily moving into other presentations or talks that are going on and actively participate in them. Use the chat, ask questions, raise points. It opens the door for you to be able to make introductions, as Wendy was talking about earlier, so that you can actually further the relationships going forward. That's pretty much it from me. Follow up when you're talking to customers and in the trade show, I'm sorry. Make sure that you put all of your connecting points in, whether you've got your email, your LinkedIn profile, your social media, Facebook, Twitter, phone, Skype, Zoom, whatever you're using. A lot of WhatsApp is out there now. Make sure to put that in your literature and in your booth at your presentation, so that you can make sure folks have an easy way to get a hold of you. That's it for me. Any questions?
All right. Are there any questions for Andrew or Wendy at all? We're going to go into the live Q&A shortly, and I'm just going to take control of the content here. So give me 1 second.
I'd like to answer. David Salzman had a question looking for how to get international exposure and business.
Yep.
And you maybe will touch on this, Rachel, but definitely take time to speak with the OIC and the U.S. Commercial Service. So I think someone had a question, how do I vet someone from a foreign country? You get an inquiry from Thailand. Generally, they are fairly fluent in English, which is okay, but you can use the Commercial Service to actually go and reach out to that potential client and without even being a formal international country profile, you can actually have them just reach out and talk to that potential client. It raises you up in the eyes of the client that you're actually a legitimate business, and it also lets them know that you want to make sure business is being conducted well. So use your international resources from the U.S. Commercial Service and Office of International Commerce.
I think that's great, Andrew. And one thing I just want to mention here, a lot of you that are on this webinar understand and know the inner workings of the STEP grant. We do have another round of STEP funding available to us, and it covers a lot of the stuff that Wendy and Andrew have talked about. So any kind of vetting or business-to-business matchmaking that you're trying to do in a particular country, or finding a distributor or a partner in a particular market, we can work with U.S. Commercial Service and cover the cost of that service. So it's at little to no risk for you as a company if you're just starting out in this or just starting out in a particular market. And then on the SEO, translations, digital marketing that Wendy talked about, I really do encourage you to look at the packages that she's put together. They're incredibly comprehensive, and for any of these activities that we've talked about, whether they're virtual trade shows or digital strategy development and implementation, this year we're covering with the STEP grant 90% of eligible expenses up to $6,000. So again, it's at little to no risk to you as a company. And if you want to find out more, just reach out to Rachel or myself. We're happy to talk to you about it.
And Tina, the U.S. Commercial Service is doing a virtual event in India in December. And that's eligible as well, 100% covered under the supplemental grant, right?
Yes, that is the Export Expansion Grant, and I'm actually very happy to say we have sold out on that virtual trade mission. This is our first virtual. We're so excited, and we have sold out on that. We have about 8 or 9 companies that are signed up and ready to go. So that's happening in December.
Yeah. That's awesome. I am so thrilled to hear that, Tina. It's so enlightening or heartening to hear how many companies are still doing international work.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be room for us as OIC to help develop additional virtual trade missions, whether they're going to be sector specific or if they're going to be kind of horizontal trade missions like the one that Andrew just mentioned, which cuts across several sectors. So keep your eyes out for those notices.
So Andrew, can you dig in a little bit more about how you network at the virtual trade shows? I've had some funny and fun experiences, so I'd like to hear what you're doing, and then I could share what I've come across.
Well, the ones we've been participating in are very technical, so there will be technical talks, and then you get into it, you use the chat, and people are dialoguing within the chat during the presentation it's very immersive. Everybody's engaged in the conversation, as opposed to sitting in chairs in front of a stage. So it's actually much more interactive than, I think, a live event. A lot of the trade shows, you're right, they're getting better, actually. You have your breakout rooms, you have a lounge where people can just jump on tables where there are other people working or sitting. So you can hover your mouse and see who's at a table, identify, oh, I actually would like to sit down and talk with these folks. And you can do that. And then they're creating, some of them are doing some games. So you actually gain points by the more interaction you do within the show. So the exhibitors are actually sponsoring something like that. So if you're engaged in the chats and you actually participate, you gain points, and then you can win a prize or something like that. It's a little bit of a gamification of the whole process. So it really is my word several slides back of just participate, find ways, and you will definitely find people who will want to step out of the main dialogue, and you can go in some of the events, go find a separate table to sit at. It can only be 2 people. And you can have a private conversation. You can have a large table or a large room where you can have up to 15 or 20 people and engage in a group conversation. So the platforms are getting better and better, so you can actually break out in different ways.
So when you're talking about engaging and talking, is this all over chat? Or if you go one-on-one, have you gotten to the point where you can actually connect by video?
It's all video. I mean, it's chats, but it's also, you can go fully video. And so that's what I was saying with the events, where you've got people coming in from all around the world, 24 hours a day. They're actually, you're just doing like this right now. And it's actually interacting with countries all over the world live.
So how do you figure out if a person is worth talking to for you?
So just like, well, as an exhibitor, you actually go in and create a profile for yourself. And so, and also the attendees put in profiles. So I think the Trade Winds India last year, even though that was a live event in 2019, everybody's profile was built. So you could go in ahead of time, and you could actually arrange, schedule appointments with people that you wanted to meet through a scheduling app. So you had full view of who you were potentially going to meet with.
And then how did you follow up with people afterwards?
Well, LinkedIn, email, those are the 2 main ones. Again, that's what I found really worked for us. The LinkedIn is pretty good.
Good.
And Wendy and Andrew, I have a question for you, just to follow up on that. Do you feel that going forward, after we sort of move beyond COVID-19 and sort of the new environment, do you feel that virtual trade shows will be just as important as in person now? Do you feel like they complement each other? Do you feel like they are not just a substitute, but there are just now that we're discovering and learning more? Because again, this is sort of a developing sort of process now. Do you feel that will just be just as important as in person too?
What the organizers I've been working with are going to do is they're going to start blended shows. So there will be in person and there will be virtual. So you can attend as a virtual participant, or you can be live. And that's the plan going forward. It's going to be blended.
Oh, that's interesting. It's funny because I feel now that pretty much everything has gone virtual, it's given a level playing field to a lot of people who may not necessarily have the budget to travel. From a program perspective, one of the things we work on is foreign direct investment, or attracting businesses from international markets to set up shop in New Hampshire. And we do not have a budget that allows us to travel. We don't have a big budget that allows us to really market specifically for business to set up shop in New Hampshire, or to expand into the U.S. and look at New Hampshire as a foothold. So being able to connect with companies through various services, whether it's through Select USA or the consulates that are looking to help their businesses move into the U.S., being able to connect with them virtually is very attractive, and I feel like it's giving at least our state and our program the ability to showcase the best that New Hampshire has to offer. So I feel, in a sense, we've leveled the playing field with some of the bigger states who have bigger budgets for foreign direct investment. So it's nice to see. I think I'd like to see from the businesses that are on here today, if they feel the same way too with some of the virtual programming they've seen.
So one of the organizers we work with focuses on developing markets around the world. So the trade show in London was for sub-Saharan Africa, and allowing access to ministers and department heads from all around the countries in Africa is a huge benefit for them, right? They're able to access major companies globally in a way that they never would have ever seen before.
I think that's also what inbound marketing has done. Small companies can create, they don't have to go out and build a big sales force or have massive budgets. There's a lot of fun things that you can do to get found. I mean, we're getting calls from all over the place with people asking us for translation, where when I first owned the company, I bought it 16 years ago. People were still looking for a local provider. Now they're looking for somebody that can really answer their specific questions. So small businesses right now on the virtual, if they take a hold of it and really leverage it, are way far out and with having advantages, because the large companies have to embrace it and then train everybody.
Yes, and
that's very interesting.
Events. We're able to be in events at the same time as the big global players. So you're absolutely right, Wendy. You're leveling the playing field, as Tina said, that you can get in there and actually participate at events that you never would have had a chance to get into before. And
the other thing is you can send more of your employees too, because right now virtual trade shows are free or cheap because people are just trying to figure out how to get people in and engage them. And so, while this learning opportunity is there, and every time you go to a virtual event, just look at it, play around in it. I mean, I've had some funny experiences where, I could request video chat with somebody and they come on completely surprised because nobody was using that function. So I'll take a good amount of time just playing around on different platforms to see what I like about him.
And Doug, just to be clear, the attending is generally free. Being a full and being an exhibitor with full rights, where you're going to get the attendee list and whatnot, still does cost a fair amount of money.
So I see people on there like Tim and Chris and Jim and Patty. Let's hear some questions, or in your chat, what are your experiences so far?
And if you'd like to unmute yourself and speak live, you can certainly do so as well. You don't have to type in if you're not comfortable or if it's easier. I know a few folks on here have done some virtual trade shows, so they definitely have some insight. So I think Chris is a good example. Chris has done one.
Not to put you on the spot, Chris.
Not to put you on the spot, Chris.
We want Chris. We want Chris.
So I get my voice instead. No, we did. And appreciate it, Rachel. And it was actually thanks to this team here. Again, Discover New England is the company, which is international tourism, inbound international tourism. Yeah, we're doing well. But trade shows in our history are going this route too. And in fact, we have a trade show, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do this. We have an annual show that we postponed. It was supposed to take place this May in Maine, and we postponed that till next April. And now we've pushed it back because everyone else is pushing theirs back until either the fall of 2021 or, as we did, into the spring of 2022. So the last conversation about blended was very interesting to me. But we attended it's called Brand USA. It's basically the U.S. Tourism Bureau. And they had one called Travel Week Europe, and it was amazing from a virtual standpoint. Literally, you felt like you were a little bit like an avatar But then, like I think Wendy talked about, we went into different rooms and Zoomed, like we had one-on-one meetings. We had 24 scheduled meetings. We filled every slot available. There was one no-show, but we had 2 other folks catch up to us, outside of the trade show. And so there's great interest in New England. That was the positive for me. It sort of goes to that thing you were talking about, both you and Bob, about, or Andrew, I should say, about, that incidental, what's going on? What's the word in the street? What are people doing? And they all want to travel. We just have to behave a little bit better.
And one of the nice things about a virtual trade show is, as an exhibitor, they typically leave them live for about a year. So if you have credentials to get into the trade show, you can go back in anytime and gather more information. And who was that person in that presentation? And you can find it. So all the presentations remain live, so you can re-watch them anytime you want. So it's actually, I find it, because I can't take it all in at once, it's much easier to do the virtual and go back and re-watch later.
Actually, Andrew, that was exactly how we did the sort of off, the non-scheduled appointments, exactly that way.
Yep.
And you can go back in and get more detail on the companies and what they're interested in. Yeah, it's been great.
We definitely have time here to share ideas and opportunities here. So please, we have time to do it. So please feel free to jump in. I'm not sure if Patty has done, they've done virtual trade shows yet. They may be doing some soon. Patty can confirm, but they are pretty active with their trade show exhibitions on a regular basis. So
yeah, we've had a couple. One of them was a bomb. It was like, just wasn't very organized. But the second one we did was awesome. But one of the big things I picked up on that is, when you're doing these virtual things, your pictures have to be certain sizes. They don't take big pictures, that your videos. So I spent a lot of time on that first one, organizing all my videos, organizing all the size of my pictures, the wording, so I don't have to go through that again. You know what I mean? So I have everything ready for the virtual shows and make it easier in the long run. It's just once you do it, keep all that information somewhere so you can just dump it right into the next virtual show. But they are very interesting, though. It depends on how they're ran and how the platform is. I found that.
Yeah, the organizers matter. Yep.
Yeah.
But you're right, that's a good thing to include in your kit for virtual trade shows, and making sure all your literature and images are the right size and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Patty. That's great. That's great. That's a great comment on that one. Anyone else want to jump in at all or add anything else? We have a few minutes here to add in. This is your chance to ask Wendy and Andrew their questions, but we're going to share their contact information at the end of this, and also as a follow-up email with the recording for this, so you'll have you can always follow up with them directly with other things.
Rachel, I wanted to mention that the Global Speed Networking is monthly, and I put the link into the registration for November. If anybody wants to be on the distribution list for that, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you search Wendy Pease Translation Expert, you'll find me on LinkedIn, or you can click on the link right now and just register for the next one that's coming up.
Yeah, that's great. And Wendy's been doing a lot of like virtual talks too, and her podcasts are really neat. So she puts them up on LinkedIn as well, so you can take a look at all of that she does. And Andrew is on top of everything. So if you ever have any questions, Andrew is he knows this stuff very well. So Andrew's
great. He and I met years ago at a live training up at New Hampshire. It was called the International Trade Resource Center then. But we've kept in touch over the years, and I always learn something new from Andrew. So I was thrilled to present with him.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and conclude here. If anyone else has any final questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box, but I'm gonna go ahead and just make a couple of extra comments here before we sign off. We're just signing off a few minutes early today, which is good. And we didn't keep you too long, just enough time here to get you guys and learn a little bit. I hope this session was helpful. First and foremost, you know, this is a new concept. This is a new opportunity for like the state of New Hampshire, or for any businesses or any, you know, anybody. This is a whole new idea and concept. So we really wanted to present this, and I hope maybe in the future or down the line or in the spring we can do more on this, because I do think it's very interesting, and I think it's going to help a lot of people in our businesses here in the state, and you know, businesses like Wendy's in Massachusetts as well. So it's going to, you know, she's you know, already mentioned she's getting inquiries more than ever because of just the way it's leveled the playing field with, you know, being everything technology based. So I do want to just thank them first and foremost, just to make this presentation today. We don't get much time with them, so taking an hour of their time is really vital, and we appreciate them taking time out of their busy schedules to do this. So I want to just mention too, we are going to send everything out, follow up. I will send a copy of the recording as well as the copy of the slide deck, and we'll get the follow-up contact information sent out to everybody by email shortly. So you will get that in your email, and you can certainly reach out to either one of them for any, you know, additional questions or thoughts on something that you may be, you know, working on and you're just not sure what direction to go. We are going, this is actually our final session for our boot camp series this fall. We got through it. It's a crunch time for us when we do these, but we are going to pick these up back in January, and we've got 4 more sessions lined up starting January 12th. So if anyone is interested in signing up again for other topics, we have our first one on January 12th for exporting 201. So that's going to be our next session. And you can visit the website nhexportassistance.com/event. And that will, you can see the listing of all of the webinars that are coming up. And I'm also going to provide you a survey link as well. So if you'd like to take a few minutes to fill out the survey, it just helps us with our programming for the future, as well as any comments that you'd like to leave about today's session. And you, in my email, my contact information is in there, email and cell phone number, so you can call me at any time, or if you need to be added to our distribution list, please email me and I'll get that taken care of. And if there's anything else, I'm going to go ahead and have folks start to disconnect, but we really appreciate you taking time out of your day today, and thank you for attending. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and you can disconnect at any time that you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.